Not all evil comes wrapped in green rage or purple gauntlets. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the loud and dramatic villains usually steal the spotlight, like when Thanos wipes out half the universe, Ultron delivers big speeches, and Loki shows off with flair. Yet some of the most sinister villains speak in measured tones, smile during betrayal, and engineer chaos from behind the curtain. They are the creepy kind of villain you don't notice right away, like a reflection watching you from behind a mirror. And only a few villains show this quiet evil better than Aldrich Killian, the underestimated smiling villain from Iron Man 3. At first glance, Aldrich Killian is a familiar archetype, the awkward scientist turned vengeful mastermind. But Marvel didn't play him as a raging lunatic or a tragic anti-hero. Killian evolved from a hunched, forgettable researcher with bad posture into the CEO of Advanced Idea Mechanics in a way that no one really noticed until the explosions started. What makes Killian fascinating isn't just that he manipulated the extremist virus or faked the Mandarin. It's that he created an entire mythology of terror, puppeteering a geopolitical illusion from the shadows, all while smiling, well-groomed, and barely raising his voice. He weaponized not just science, but a very dangerous narrative. Back in Iron Man 3's opening flashback, we met a younger Killian who happens to be a limping, awkward man with unearned hope in his eyes. He approaches Tony Stark on New Year's Eve, pitching Advanced Idea Mechanics, begging for just 5 minutes. Stark was drunk and dismissive and gave him a cruel brush-off. It's a moment that feels like a throwaway humiliation, but Killian internalizes it, refines it, and crucially, doesn't scream back. He doesn't attack Stark then and there. Instead, he disappears for over a decade. That's what makes Killian one of the MCU's most chilling antagonists. He grew charming, attractive, and powerful. He returned not with vengeance on his lips, but with product launches and political leverage. This time, he didn't want to kill Tony Stark, he wanted to replace him. One of Killian's masterstrokes was crafting the Mandarin, a composite villain designed to absorb global attention. He orchestrated bombings, terror videos, and press conferences to maintain the illusion of a larger-than-life terrorist threat. While everyone was distracted by Ben Kingsley's dramatic performance, the real danger was happening quietly. Extremist test subjects were exploding, and the public had no idea. This was storytelling as a weapon. Killian used fear to dominate, and in a modern media landscape, his tactic was prophetic. The Mandarin wasn't a man, he was an alibi, and Killian was the man who sold it to the world like a new operating system. By the film's climax, Killian breathes fire and fights like a supervillain should, but the core of his menace lies in how long he operated undetected. He turned PTSD-stricken soldiers into human weapons. He infiltrated the US government through Aldrich-friendly defense contracts. He created dependency on his own solutions to problems he covertly engineered. And unlike many of Marvel's louder foes, he made it personal. Not because he hated Tony, but because he saw himself as superior. Where Stark sought redemption, Killian craved domination. His chilling belief that he was the rightful heir to innovation was more unnerving than any grand speech. What makes Killian different from over-the-top villains is that he actually believes in what he's doing. He doesn't see himself as evil, he thinks the world is broken, weak, and needs strong leadership, his leadership. In some ways, Killian is like a high-tech Bond villain in a business suit. He doesn't want to destroy the world, he wants to control it, reshape it, and improve it. And when things go wrong, he doesn't call it a disaster, he calls it a glitch, a failed experiment, just a PR problem. To him, people dying from his experiments is just a product flaw. And what's most terrifying? He sounds completely rational when he says it. If we consider Killian to be the polished face of corporate evil, then Ava Starr is the ghost in the machine. She isn't building empires or spinning narratives, she's caught in the wreckage they leave behind. Also known as Ghost, Ava Starr doesn't show up with a big speech, she just appears silently, painfully, like she's barely holding on. That quiet struggle is what makes her one of Marvel's most powerful and haunting villains. Because Ghost isn't out to take over the world, she's just trying to stay alive in it. Let's make one thing clear, ghosts aren't evil. She's not fueled by ego or vengeance or greed. Her story is built on something far more dangerous, necessity. Ava is a villain not because she chose to hurt others, but because she's been forced to choose between dying slowly or hurting people to stay alive. She exists in a kind of quantum purgatory. Her body is destabilized by a childhood accident caused by quantum experimentation and is constantly phasing in and out of reality. And Marvel, wisely, doesn't make her scream about it. Instead, we watch her suffer silently, twitching in and out of form, haunted by flickering footsteps and fighting a battle that no one can even see. Considering most Marvel villains' schemes, they plan empires, recruit armies, or hack into global defense systems. As for Ghost, her strategy is far more human. She manipulates because she has no time for negotiation. Her every move is filled with urgency. Eventually, she's forced into a tactical mindset because she's running out of time. She needs Hank Pym's quantum tech and she doesn't have the luxury of waiting for permission. Her actions include kidnapping scientists, attacking labs, Disabling our shrinking heroes are about desperation masked as determination, and that, frankly, is scarier than most master plans, because when someone has nothing left to lose, they become unpredictable. Watch her closely. Ava Starr never stands on a rooftop to declare her intent. She never asks anyone to understand her. She's the anti-Loki who doesn't want the throne, but wants a cure. And that might be the most morally tangled motive Marvel's given us yet. From a visual standpoint, Ghost is terrifying. Her phasing body glitches like corrupted footage, flickering from one reality to the next with no rhythm. You don't see her coming. You don't hear her leave. And that metaphor extends far beyond her quantum instability because the world has already haunted her. Her body is a battlefield. Her mind is a timeline of government betrayal, scientific neglect, and physical agony. One of the most tragic things about Ava's story is that she's the product of other people's ambitions. Her father, Elias Starr, was a scientist shunned by the scientific community, including Hank Pym. When his experiment went wrong and killed him and his wife, Ava was left broken, molecularly and emotionally. S.H.I.E.L.D. turned her into a weapon, trained her, used her quantum phasing as an asset, and when she started to break down, they offered no solutions. So when Ghost finally takes matters into her own hands, she's not creating chaos, she's trying to fix what everyone else broke. Her villainy is inherited, and there's something especially chilling about a world that creates its own monsters, then forgets they exist. There's a deep ethical question at the core of Ghost's arc. How far can someone go to ease their suffering before they cross the line into villainy? Marvel has occasionally flirted with this type of morally ambiguous villain, including Zemo, Vulture, even Wanda, but Ghost is perhaps the most understated of them all. She doesn't want revenge, she doesn't care about the Avengers, she just wants one thing, to stop hurting. That's what makes her so haunting. By the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp, Ghost doesn't die in a blaze of glory. She doesn't get thrown into a cell or banished to another dimension. She's helped by the very people she tried to destroy. Janet Van Dyne, sensing her agony, willingly gives her a burst of quantum energy to stabilize her, and Marvel, wisely, lets her walk away. Meanwhile, there's a particular kind of villain that doesn't announce itself. These are the Predators who don't need to shout because they already know they will win. They walk through fire without blinking, watch from shadows without breathing, and when they move, it's already too late. Take for example Taskmaster from Black Widow, a ghost in tactical gear whose body speaks in stolen languages, every movement a reflection of someone else's greatness, weaponized into something monstrous. But behind the mask, Taskmaster isn't a villain by choice. He's a marionette and a symbol of what happens when control becomes absolute. Taskmaster's first appearance in Black Widow is quietly terrifying. There's no big entrance or dramatic speech. That's what makes them scary. They don't need to show off. Instead, Taskmaster copies every Avenger's fighting style perfectly. A shield throw like Captain America, a backflip like Black Widow, a bow shot like Hawkeye. They don't fight like a person. They fight like a replay of the heroes we know, like a highlight reel turned against you. And that's what makes it more disturbing than just strength. It feels like they're stealing who the heroes are. Most Marvel villains want to become gods or kings. Taskmaster simply becomes you, literally. Every strength you've earned and every skill you've mastered can be watched, learned, and turned against you. In a fight, Taskmaster copies the moves of people you trust or once fought with. The way Natasha spins a blade, how Steve blocks with a shield, the wild speed of T'Challa. It's creepy because there's no emotion or pride, just cold robotic skill. Fighting Taskmaster is like fighting your own shadow, but this shadow doesn't feel anything. It never hesitates, and it won't show you any mercy. That makes them more than an assassin. They're the ultimate tool of terrifyingly familiar control. Of course, the true horror lies in who Taskmaster really is, Antonia Dreykov, daughter of General Dreykov, mastermind of the Red Room. Antonia wasn't born a monster. She was turned into one, first by the trauma of an explosion orchestrated by Natasha Romanoff herself, then by her father's invasive technology, which transformed her into a puppet. The helmet, the mimicry software, the inhibitor chips or chains. This is a body used like a tool, a daughter stripped of agency, movement, and memory, and it makes Taskmaster's silence even more painful. She doesn't speak because she isn't allowed to. Every great villain mirrors the hero in some way, and Taskmaster is a harsh reminder of Natasha Romanoff's dark past. Natasha escaped the Red Room, regained her autonomy, and became a hero. Taskmaster never got the chance. When Natasha broke her conditioning, Antonia never had a moment of freedom. Taskmaster is terrifying because they embody what happens when control becomes total. Dreykov's Red Room isn't just a place where girls are trained to kill. It's a system that erases humanity and replaces it with function. Taskmaster is the final evolution of that philosophy. Not a spy, but a weapon. Not a mind, but a program. In many ways, Taskmaster is what would happen if S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Winter Soldier program met Silicon Valley. And unlike other Marvel villains who want to dominate the world through power, Taskmaster reminds us that domination can come in subtler, more insidious ways. That's a different kind of villainy. And Marvel, for all its flaws, does something powerful by letting Antonia live. She isn't punished, she isn't killed, she's rescued, and that subverts the typical villain arc in a way that feels quietly radical, because the true enemy wasn't Taskmaster, it was what created her. Where Dreykov used technology to turn a person into a weapon, the High Evolutionary uses science to erase what makes a being unique, emotional, or imperfect. Both villains are obsessed with reshaping others in their image, but while Taskmaster is a tragic product of that obsession, the High Evolutionary is its architect. The High Evolutionary isn't your standard cosmic tyrant. He's not after conquest or revenge. He doesn't care about armies, alliances, or even recognition. What he seeks is far more insidious, the ability to perfect life itself. That's what makes him one of the most disturbing figures in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because he's not trying to kill you, he's trying to improve you. He looks at a flawed, chaotic, and emotionally sentient life and sees test subjects, code that needs rewriting. In his view, pain is a process, death is data, and that is villainy in its most terrifying form, one that hides behind science, wears the face of genius, and speaks softly while it breaks everything sacred. Many villains in the MCU claim to be gods. The High Evolutionary acts like one, but not the thunder and lightning kind, not the kind who smites or demands worship. He's the kind who designs worlds from scratch, codes morality into species, and dismantles creation when it doesn't meet his expectations. Perhaps the most sickening part of his vision comes in the form of Counter-Earth, his failed perfect society. At first, Counter-Earth looks like a perfect little world, animal hybrids living in clean homes, quiet streets, and peaceful neighborhoods. But look a little closer and you see the truth. There's drug use, violence, and hidden suffering everywhere. That's because the High Evolutionary doesn't truly understand life, he only understands control. And when his creations aren't perfect, he doesn't try to help them, but destroys them. He wipes out Counter-Earth without emotion because it failed to live up to his vision. That's a god complex, and he's calm and proud as he hits the reset button. What elevates the High Evolutionary from chilling to unforgettable is his relationship with Rocket. To him, Rocket is a prototype, a tool, an early experiment with unexpectedly advanced cognition. And the fact that Rocket learned, that he thought independently, that he escaped, that's an unforgivable flaw. This is the moment where philosophy becomes personal. The High Evolutionary doesn't want to destroy Rocket out of vengeance. He wants to break him open and understand how the creature outsmarted God. Rocket is the scar on his ego, and that's the quiet horror behind their entire conflict. It's not about saving the universe, it's about one man's obsession with the imperfection of his own legacy. One of the most unsettling aspects of the High Evolutionary is how controlled he is. He speaks like a scientist explaining a failed project to a board of investors. He smiles while explaining genetic manipulation. He raises his voice only when perfection slips from his fingers. In one of the most unforgettable visual moments of the film, we see what Rocket did to him, how he tore into the High Evolutionary's face during his escape, and beneath the artificial skin is a broken mess. The High Evolutionary represents one kind of a nightmare, a god who demands perfection and deletes what disappoints him. But what if the threat isn't divine at all? What if it's something human, angry, and quietly desperate? Because there's another kind of villain who doesn't look down on humanity from above, but rises from within it. Where the High Evolutionary fears chaos, Vargas fears extinction. Where one obsesses over upgrading life, the other obsesses over preserving it exactly as it is. In Marvel Comics, Vargas is a man who did the unthinkable because he didn't have any power. He faced down some of the most powerful mutants on the planet and emerged victorious. Vargas first appeared in Extreme X-Men, a lesser-known arc where it was revealed that he doesn't hate mutants because they're different. He fears them because they represent the end of his kind. To Vargas, evolution is the hourglass running out for baseline humans. He becomes the perfect weapon by refining his body and mind to the point of preternatural discipline. And that's what sets him apart. He doesn't want to destroy mutants, he wants to prove he doesn't need to become one. Vargas is often described as perfect by Marvel's own standards, a man with the reflexes of a mutant, the strength of an Olympian, the mind of a philosopher, and none of it granted by a gene. In a universe where gods fall from the sky and children awaken to cosmic-level abilities, what place is left for the ordinary? Vargas doesn't accept that question, so he turns himself into a monument of human supremacy, in a way that he wants to outlast mutation by outclassing it. Meanwhile, there's something deeply chilling about that, because unlike villains like Magneto, who wear ideology like a flag, Vargas is ideology embodied. He doesn't want your attention, he doesn't want followers, he doesn't even care if you know his name. That's what makes him so effective. The best villains in Marvel are the ones who don't try to be villains. They don't see themselves as monsters. They see themselves as surgeons, or saviors, or inevitabilities. Vargas is all three. While the X-Men have always been a metaphor about race, gender, identity, Vargas offers a new dimension, the fear of being outdated. He's the antagonist of an age where humans fear automation, AI, genetic engineering. In a world of gods, he's the wrath of the forgotten man. And that's what makes villains like him so scary. They don't try to scare you, they just act. They see heroes not as predators, but as threats. They don't want power to rule the world. They want to prove that the world doesn't need heroes at all.